You're listening to ConnectWise Tech Talk, a ConnectWise podcast network show providing you with tips and tricks for optimizing your use of ConnectWise products and other tools in the TSP ecosystem.
My name is Vicki Bruns, and I'm the manager for our marketplace, which, by the way, is a great resource for our partners when it comes to solutions that integrate into and can be transacted through ConnectWise. I'm joined today by Cameron Tousley, National Partner Account Manager for ESET. Thanks for joining us today, Cameron.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm excited here.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, we want to know more about ESET. So tell us all the things about ESET. Tell us about your partnership with ConnectWise. Give us all the goods about integrations being transacted through the marketplace. I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'll let you highlight those details.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, the technology partnership goes way back to 2012. And, it's been evolving ever since. We have a few plugins with ConnectWise, ones that are really useful to our MSPs, including one for your RMM for Automate. And so it's a nice plugin. It allows the MSP to synchronize licensing with ESET, configure it, deploy it, manage it, and just really get a whole lot of value out of using Automate versus our native cloud security platform. So, although we've had a relationship forever, we've continued to evolve throughout that time, come up with enhancements, new plugins, and the one that we have right now is pretty robust, and our MSPs absolutely enjoy it because they always ask to use it. And then, on the other side, you guys also distribute our product, of course. And what's really kind of exciting and new is getting into that marketplace, right? The marketplace is fantastic, and it's an evolution that's happening all over the place. And I'm glad that ConnectWise is kind of really on the forefront of that. And, with our integration, what it does is it allows our MSPs to purchase right out of your marketplace. It's self-serve. They can go in 24/7. Order whatever ESET products and licensing they want without having to talk to anybody. So the real takeaway there is that, the conversations with their sales and account managers change, right? It's no more about the busy work of, hey, I'm going to send you this quote and you're going to e-sign a PO and, you spend your time on that. No, I mean, the conversation can kind of shift into more important items like, hey, I need your advice on cybersecurity and, the tools I should use in my environment. Great, here's my advice, here's my pitch on everything, and here's what I think you should be using. Find it in the marketplace. If it's an ESET related question, you can always come back. Otherwise, it's all self-serve and good luck. So I think that that's pretty cool. And, like I said, I think that that's kind of the evolution, and marketplaces are on the rise, right?
Yeah, they sure are. They sure are. And today, we want to hear more about ESET. And also, the topic of this episode is titled Technology for a Hybrid Work Environment. So all of you out there, you're living it, you're living it day to day. And so we want to hear from you, Cameron. What do you think is important to consider to keep employees communicating and productive in a hybrid environment?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think that that's the most important thing, right? Because what we've effectively done is we've taken employees off-site who could book meetings together, go to lunch, they could, meet in conference rooms, and they could just be face-to-face whenever. And yeah, that's definitely the best way of communicating in most instances. But, I think that everyone was forced to jump out of the office without a whole lot of notice. We all did the best that we could, and, we're still adapting. And I think having the right technology, like for instance, our company, we've standardized on Microsoft Teams, and, this is not necessarily a plug on that or anything, but, software like that is easy to use. We have one-click meetings. We can jump into a meeting with somebody, communicate with them over video, and that's kind of nice. I mean, it's the next best thing to being in the office. And I think that keeps things effective, right? We can communicate whenever we need to. If we want that personal touch, turn the video on. If you're having a bad hair day, turn it off, right? So I think that that's, it's important, and it's important to standardize too. I think a lot of companies, they kind of get lost with this whole, I have, this solution that does this and this one that does that, and they kind of overlap, and it's like, okay, we need to simplify. We need to get down to a core set of tools, and that way, as we're trying to move forward in our attempt to be off-site, it can be easier for both the employees and the IT team supporting them, right?
Yeah, and I can say I can vouch for Cameron, everyone. He is always on video whenever we have calls with ESET, and I appreciate that because I come from the same side of the coin. I like to keep my camera on as much as I can, even when I'm having bad hair days. So happens from time to time. And
Right.
you talked about standardizing solutions for our partners. Do you think that it should be a specific type of tool set by vendor, let's say, or do you think that having a solution stack that contains, I guess, a subset of vendors is the best practice? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't want to be the person who says, standardize on a particular vendor because that's kind of the wrong approach, really. That's putting convenience over quality or, being able to meet your needs. I think the more important thing is to figure out what your challenges are, right? Socialize those among different teams and team members, not just executives, but the people that are in the field, in the trenches, because they're going to be your biggest customer, and then kind of go from there and figure out, does this company A satisfy, challenges A, B, and C, right? Does company B, do I need to adopt that as well? So I think a lot of times it's kind of this balance, right? Try and standardize on less vendors. It's a lot easier. It's less software, less management, and you can't be an expert on everything. But make sure that you're hitting all the challenge points. And if you can do that with one vendor and they're covering everything, good on you. I mean, that's just going to make your life easier.
Hmm.
But if not, don't pigeonhole yourself into that kind of pressure, because there's a lot of vendors who they do one thing right now and they want to do two or three other things that will help you in the future, but it's not right now. So I guess what I'm saying is in the short term, make your plan, don't sacrifice quality over convenience, but in the spirit of convenience, try and reduce the amount of software and applications and platforms that you're using because, you just don't have all the time in the day to become an expert in everything, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When it comes to communication tools or file sharing tools, obviously we know that ESET is there for our partners' security needs. But do you think that we need security kind of layered in around these communication tools that we use every day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let me ask you. So, if you are file sharing and you got a file from the outside, or even if it was created inside your organization, you're sharing it around, and then maybe you're sharing it with an external party. They don't know if that file's clean, and you guys don't necessarily know either. I mean, we're going to hope it is, but file or I guess collaboration tools, they have this aspect of them of file sharing as well. So they're no different than sending a file, through email or another sharing resource. So yeah, I'd say absolutely. Our ESET security, we layer on to any type of application, and we have a newer cloud office security product. It protects Microsoft Teams, and we use
Hmm.
it, and that's kind of low-hanging fruit for us. We thought that, hey, there's still a market out there for security, and let's be the cybersecurity vendor that helps close that gap with all the file sharing programs and collaboration tools because they're easy vectors for an attack. And a lot of people may not see them as that because it's not a traditional way of file sharing, but it absolutely is. So,
Yeah, I didn't even know about that offering yet. So that's good to know, folks. And actually that segued right into the question that I was about to ask you. I think you did a good job of answering it, but if there's anything else you want to add to this, I was going to ask, what's the importance of device security while working in a hybrid environment? I think you touched on that, but is there anything else?
yeah, we're moving this whole operation from on-site, where it's a very controlled environment, to off-site, where there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of devices that you can't see every day. They're not within the network walls. So, what do we do for those? Definitely have good device security. I think another thing is two-factor authentication. I mean, having a layer to protect you or protect your employees, logging into their devices, logging into the network. It's kind of that security in layers that's always been mentioned throughout time, but actually looking at each piece from the my employees are off-site perspective, and maybe now you have personal devices too. I think mobility is going to play a bigger part as we kind of move forward. And that's one thing that often goes unnoticed, or people think, you know what, I'm protecting the laptops, the desktops, servers, a couple other layers here and there. and then we get to the mobile conversation and it kind of gets forgotten. So I just think with people moving off site, there's many more variables that need to be thought about. And having the right layers of security means going through your checklist and saying, okay, did I hit not only device security, but did I do authentication and, my email security? Like there's so many layers that you really have to think about and be willing to invest in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think sometimes with partners or their clients, maybe they haven't pushed the multi-factor authentication much across all products because it takes time to set that up. But I kind of think it goes back to trying to make sure that you're working on the business and not trying to put out those potential fires that could erupt from not doing it properly in the long run.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you should never sacrifice security over, I'd say over budget. Everybody's got a budget, but you got to figure out a way to make it work. And the thing that I like, I'll give an ESET plug real quick. We have a suite of different products that includes 2FA or multi-factor authentication, along with our cloud platform and a variety of other layers that are all wrapped into these neat license bundles. So no matter what vendor you're buying through, try and get away from the a la carte style because, vendors like ESET and others, we're trying to make it cheaper on you as the provider or the end customer to be able to run these different layers of technology, but get them in a single license where we kind of subsidize the cost of each one because you're committing to more security. So we appreciate that, and we're going to give you a deal on it, right?
Okay. Well, and so the last question that I have about the hybrid working environment is what do you see as the evolution of this in the coming years, and how do you think ESET will position itself to be able to help our partners and their clients in the workforce best?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Because there's so many question marks about, where should we go from here? And there's a lot of businesses who are still kind of wondering their next game plan. Will I ever return to my office? I don't know. If I do, should I have kind of an adjusted schedule for most employees? Do they actually want to return? A lot of them, they want either kind of a combo, like a hybrid approach where they're coming in for maybe a day or two, or some don't want to come back at all. And it's nothing against the company. They like, mingling with their colleagues and all that. But when we get down to it, companies in our in the USA or it's a heavy pressure to always be producing, right? So you need your people to be productive all the time, and if they can skip that hour commute, if they can be less stressed because hey, I didn't have to wake up and go across town in the morning or get the kids ready, like whatever it may be, I think that that's going to kind of drive the evolution. But to get more specific, I think that video and collaboration software will continue to evolve. Video quality will get better. The technology price will get cheaper because, hey, everybody's using it. And now it's, being sold in mass, or I guess more mass.
Yeah, it's mandatory almost to do your job, right?
Yeah, I guess, well, there'd be a policy. Well, do you need to be on video or not, right? Depends on how you're looking that day.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I think mobility too. Mobility is going to take a front seat. It's already been kind of on the rise. Applications, devices, everything is getting more mobile, and it's coming down all the way into every different type of business, especially the service-based ones, which is really cool to see because I think that the pandemic has kind of forced everybody to evolve quicker, which is probably the silver lining in all of this. Would we have moved on to this collaboration software across the masses? Maybe not as quick. There's a lot of early adopters, but there's a lot who didn't. They didn't know anything about this, and now they will. But I think also, just from the company policy perspective, I think HR teams right now are trying to gain feedback from their employees and their staff at all levels to kind of figure out what type of policies they need to start creating. And that's going to be really important because we want to continue to attract talent at companies, right? We want to make it fair for everybody, and we want everybody to thrive. So how do we do that when everybody's off-site? And there needs to be policy around that too. So, I think in conclusion, just a balance between technology and communication, and people being in and out of the office. I think we're going to see some more big changes in the next 12 months because we're not over with this thing and it continues to drive our behavior. So I'm actually really excited to kind of see where this goes. And I know ESET's on the forefront. We had a work from home policy right from the beginning. We jumped out as soon as we knew that we probably were going to go home. Our company made a really quick decision to do that. They moved everybody out in a matter of 2 or 3 days, and then we had a work from home policy a few weeks later. And we're ready for this, and we're trying to be a thought leader on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, we can relate at ConnectWise. It was really nice to be able to go home and no questions asked. You're working from home until we update protocols, but it's been status quo for the last year and a half. And hold on to your seats, folks. Put on your seatbelts because, like you said, Cameron, the next 12 months will be really interesting to see how this unfolds.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a quick little plug before we're done. For anybody who runs an ESET product, is an ESET customer, be sure to check out all our solutions in the ConnectWise marketplace. It's very cool. You can go in and manage all your licensing yourself. We have our brand new cloud security platform solutions on there. So everything is cloud. Our customers have been asking for that for a while. It's absolutely there. Lots of great technologies, and be sure to hit us up. We'd love to have a conversation with you about that.
I could vouch that Cameron is a great resource. Also, there's the Marketplace Concierge team that can assist if there are any questions about that. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Cameron. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me in. Always excited to be aboard here. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to dive into one of our new Invent integration partners, QuickPass Software. Thanks for joining us, Jim. Okay, listeners, here's the scoop. Jim Jessup is the COO and co-founder for QuickPass Software. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Vicky, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and tell us, we want to know all about what your product does and your partnership with ConnectWise.
Yeah, for sure. So QuickPass is a cybersecurity software as a service company that offers credential management and identity verification solutions for MSPs. We sell two products, QDesk, which integrates with ConnectWise, and QGuard. QDesk helps MSPs reduce ticket volume and resolve tickets faster with a self-serve password reset solution and centralized credential management platform while preventing social engineering attacks on help desk with an end user identity verification system. And on the other hand, QGuard, which is our other product, prevents ransomware attacks and account takeovers by offering an automated credential management platform for privileged accounts. And in terms of QDesk and the integration with ConnectWise Manage, so what we do is we allow technicians direct access to manage end user Active Directory, Azure AD, and local account credentials and verify their identity directly within a service ticket. So for example, within a service ticket pod within ConnectWise Manage. This includes the ability to view end user account password expiry statuses, reset their password, unlock their account, enable and disable their account, and send them an identity verification request via email, text message, or push notification to the QuickPass mobile app. So essentially, in a nutshell, this helps technicians resolve tickets faster since they don't need to look up credentials to log into their customer systems, remotely connect to it, and log in before being able to take the same actions that they can take directly out of a service ticket.
And it sounds like you may know something about that, Jim, because I've read up on you and I've heard that you were an MSP yourself before starting QuickPass. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I had the joy of owning an MSP and operating it for about 8 years and being in the industry at large for about 20. So definitely had to reset a few passwords in my day and definitely have created and logged probably tens of thousands of ConnectWise managed tickets in the process.
Oh, and who knows how many hours?
Unfortunately, I lost count, but I can count the gray hairs that I have.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Jim, tell us, what have you seen from MSPs as they've had to make the switch over the past few years to a hybrid working environment? The title of this episode is obviously Technology for a Hybrid Work Environment. And since you've been there, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. there's certainly a few important points there, especially working the last few years in QuickPass and getting a lot of feedback from many of the MSPs that we work with. So the first thing is the increased threats to end users working from home, ranging from things such as insecure home networks, use of personal devices, and increased attack attempts from hackers targeting these poor souls having to work from home and being able to walk their dogs every day. The other thing is difficulties in verifying the identities of end users calling the help desk for support. When they're working from home versus working from the corporate office, they can't just call back the corporate office and say, "Hey, Sally, can you check and see if Jen, actually called in," right? It could be any random person calling, claiming to be that person. So that's definitely a big challenge that MSPs are having. Increase in support ticket volume, not only having to support the traditional corporate network, but now having to support people's home networks, right? So if you can think about that, it's almost like an exponential increase in support requirements. You're not just supporting everybody's office, but everybody's home office now. And you can imagine sort of the additional effort and cost that brings about, and also affects profit margins for MSPs, right? And they might either have to increase their contract prices, or try to be way more efficient and find ways to do that. The next thing is challenges managing internal security at MSPs due also to technicians working from home. So they're not also dealing from their customers' employees working from home, but a lot of MSPs have their technicians working from home. And of course, that just, they become huge targets for hackers, and as well as the issue of insecure networks, knowing that they have access to privileged systems and accounts becomes that much more important. And then also challenges hiring technicians caused by increased demand and labor shortages in some countries due to COVID income assistance programs. Especially in Canada, they had a special program where, if you were out of work or didn't feel comfortable working, you could get income assistance. So then there was a huge, labor shortage of, people just trying to get, fill jobs in general, whether it be at restaurants or even at MSPs. So that's definitely been a challenge in some countries. And then a couple of other points, issues securing and managing customer endpoints with devices outside of the corporate network. So now we're no longer in that sheltered environment of the corporate office. We're now dealing with everybody's, home networks again, and securing those endpoints and having solutions to do that. And then lastly, really being forced to increase their adoption of a zero trust security architecture. So whether that means, moving more to the cloud, to Azure Active Directory or something similar, and relying less on a traditional VPN solution like you guys have to use at your home.
Well, as you kind of mentioned, there is a lot more exposure today than there was a few years ago when we really all started kind of going through this pandemic. And so that being said, obviously there's bad actors that are taking advantage of that additional exposure and those vulnerabilities. What would you say are some best practices that MSPs can utilize for implementing additional layers of security in their business?
Yeah, another great question. So first off, I would say providing end users with a secure self-service solution if they need to reset their passwords, unlock their accounts, and verify their identity. Number one point being that it's a secure solution, but also this goes into the hugely increased ticket volume with supporting the home users. If you don't have a self-serve solution in place, tickets are going to get backlogged. You're not going to be able to get back to your customers. Customers are going to be unhappy, let alone perhaps insecure. The next thing is verifying the identity of those end users calling the help desk before providing support for them, especially before resetting the password or making any type of security change. Because now what's happening more often is, bad actors are, calling an MSP, pretending they're an end user. If they're working from home, much more difficult to identify them, and having an easy system that's, secure to be able to identify those users before they actually take any action on that support call. Next thing would be offering some sort of a multi-factor authentication solution to end users and to protect, most importantly, privileged credentials where possible, such as enabling Microsoft Authenticator if they have those Microsoft 365 accounts, etc. Next thing is rotating privileged credentials within their identity platform and locally on workstations on a consistent basis, especially if there is no option for MFA available as an additional layer of security. Because the one thing with passwords is a lot of times with legacy environments, they may not have access to MFA. And so really rotating the credentials, not only to secure random credentials, but also on an automated basis becomes even more important. And then also because even if you have MFA, there's a lot of ways that MFA can be hacked. And if your credentials are static, especially for your privileged accounts, that can be, open up the door to a whole other can of worms that nobody wants to open. Also, a couple of other points, and don't want to ramble on too much here. One is deploying a more robust endpoint security solution, such as some of the other guests that came on here that can proactively prevent and catch zero-day attacks versus your traditional, more basic antivirus type solution. And then also deploying some sort of a MDM type solution, such as a Microsoft Intune or equivalent, to basically enforce those security configurations as well as compliance when those devices are outside of the corporate network and might only have an internet connection.
Okay, those are really good points. That was like you said, that was a mouthful. That was a lot. But I have to ask, do you think that MSPs are struggling today with passing on that type of education to their end clients about what things to look out for? Like you said, MFA can also be kind of a struggle sometimes, even at the partner level. So I can't even imagine how that looks when it drills down to the client level.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the biggest things is, adoptability on any solution. And you always have to have that balance between trying to be more secure, but also trying to have that ease of use there. And because if you don't have it, what's going to happen is people just aren't going to use the solutions you're offering to them, or they're just going to call your help desk more, which is also another problem, right?
Right. More hours that you're
Exactly. It really comes down to that. It's a very KPI intensive, labor focused type of company, right? So anything that increases that substantially, hurts your business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really interested to hear your input on this, Jim. This is a question that we've posed to everyone on the panel. How do you see the hybrid work environment evolving over the coming years?
Great question. I'll try to do my best to answer that. Look at my crystal ball. So the first thing is that definitely more companies will be offering permanent hybrid working environments due to demand from staff after having the ability to do so. I mean, I can definitely agree myself. Much more convenient being able to work from home a couple of days a week at least and not have to be in the office, deal with commutes and all that kind of stuff. And even after COVID, I think now that people have gotten a taste from it, commercial real estate agents might not like it very much, but I think that's likely a trend that's going to increase in the future. Organizations will have to move away from more traditional trusted corporate networks with only perimeter security to kind of what I mentioned before, to a more zero trust cloud-based architecture. And, in a nutshell, that just basically means that, rather than having, that fortress in the middle that has all the security on the outside, but everything on the inside is trusted, to more basically assuming that everybody who's connecting to the network and the resources are outside the network. And so you have to obviously have the protection and verification for them to be able to connect to those resources as if they were, operating out of a coffee shop. So wherever they're, operating of, you're pretty much assuming that they're operating out of a, the least secure type of environment. So you have your protections and security aligned with that assumption. And then the other thing is technicians will also be increasingly remote, and managing and securing their access will become a lot more challenging.
And how is QuickPass helping MSPs with managing and securing the workforce?
Yeah, so what QuickPass does right now is we're using automated credential rotation to prevent external ransomware and internal threats from disgruntled technicians. One of the big problems that a lot of our customers have is, they have ransomware bad actors contacting technicians at MSPs and offering them a bounty from a ransom for offering them access to their systems. And so having some sort of an automated system in place that is on a daily basis rotating credentials if they get out of hand one day versus the next, as well as making it so the technicians have either no access to the passwords themselves or don't actually have to see them in order to use them. The other is removing standing privileges and access to credentials by providing just-in-time access for technicians access to either customer servers, with things such as certificate and token-based security, so that you're not, leaving their access there all the time. So if they thought, oh, I'm going to give my access to somebody else so that they can, utilize username and password, they wouldn't have their access even enabled until they were able to connect to their resource and being able to record all the details for those sessions, such as if they were connecting through ConnectWise Control or something like that, which is a bit of a segue into some things that we're looking at doing in the future at QuickPass. Enhancing two-way identity protection of end users and MSP technicians to continue to prevent social engineering attacks and threats from bad actors. So that's not just verifying an end user who's calling, but also if an MSP calls an end user, having a way for them to verify that, hey, that isn't a hacker or a bad actor trying to contact the end user and then trying to, get their credentials or remotely connect to their machine, and do whichever they would like and get access to their systems. And then lastly, offering a full suite of enhanced privileged access management for MSPs with integrations to their essential technology stack products. So as I mentioned, like ConnectWise Control, things like ConnectWise Automate, also their standard documentation platforms, and also third-party password managers as well.
Okay, I feel like that answer, you just led me right into the other question I was going to ask you. Tell us a little bit about the Manage integration that you built.
Yeah, so just kind of topping off from what I mentioned before. So the whole purpose of the Manage integration is that most MSPs spend their time in one of three systems, either their PSA, which is ConnectWise Manage, their documentation system might be like, IT Boost or equivalent, or their RMM system, kind of like Automate. And one of the challenges that we faced initially was just obviously we had all these great tools available to us, but without an integration directly within the PSA, i.e. ConnectWise Manage, it was a little bit more challenging for our customers to use our solution. So the idea was to have all of our main features to manage the account and credentials for an end user directly available within a service ticket. So for example, either they create a new service ticket in Manage and they associate the company and the contact, and it's able to automatically detect the properties for that user's account from either Active Directory, Azure, as well as if it was a local account credentials, they can see their status, they can reset their password, send them a password reset link, verify their identity, unlock their account, and a few other bells and whistles that are coming along the way. And then we log everything within the internal notes of the ticket as well.
Okay, great. So making the process much more intuitive and automated, and again, kind of reducing those man hours that technicians would need to take working on password resets manually. So that's great.
Right. So they can just stay right within Manage and they don't have to go into our system. They don't have to go to remotely control to a customer system, et cetera, down the line, right? So it just takes away anywhere from 3 to 5 steps from the process for them.
That's awesome information. Thank you so much, Jem, for all of that great intel today for our listeners. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me, Vicky. It was great to be here.
Yeah, and anytime. We'd love to have you back soon as well. Now we're going to dive into IBM MaaS360. I'm joined today by Brian Christini, Director of Channel Programs and Operations at MaaS360, which is an IBM company, if you didn't know that, by the way. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, Vicki, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Well, so I know that you're here to talk to us a little bit about MaaS360 and your partnership with ConnectWise. So give us all the details.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar, MaaS360 is and I'm probably going to use way too many acronyms during this conversation, but a UEM platform, and UEM stands for Unified Endpoint Management. And it's really, and just to take a step back, so UEM is the evolution of MDM, mobile device management, which was kind of basic management of different mobile device types. And then evolved into, about 5 years ago, enterprise mobility management, with management of those mobile devices, plus getting applications on those devices, getting content on those devices, and enhancing kind of the overall security profile of those devices. And now UEM, which has really kind of come into light over the past couple of years, is kind of, a single console, so unified, that manages all the different device types. So whether it's smartphones, tablets, Mac devices, Windows devices, IoT devices, ruggedized devices. So all the different device types, and tying in a lot of different use cases, whether they're corporate owned or personally owned, whether they're a kiosk type device that may be leveraged. So MaaS360 embraces and helps organizations, MSPs, and as well as end customers in some situations, managing all those different endpoints. And we'll get a little more into the detail as the conversation evolves. And then just related to our partnership with ConnectWise, it's been a while now. I think we've been.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like the LabTech days, right? That was before LabTech became the ConnectWise and ConnectWise Automate.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we were FiberLink, you were LabTech, and I think by the time, because it took a couple of years, we finally got through the partnership. We were now part of IBM, and you were ConnectWise, and we've actually had a long relationship with Continuum now, or Continuum as well. So the family comes together, which is awesome. But one thing I wanted to touch on about the partnership, and certainly it's evolved, right? Because we were selling some of our, I'll say, legacy solutions, FiberLink solutions at that point, but with contract type we put in place in the past year with ConnectWise, is all about marketplace, right? So we're selling all our standard 4 bundles, all the add-on components that go with that pull in, the best in breed kind of features and functions for each of those, and really different levels of, we've got the kind of a basic bundle, right? And so it's Essentials, Deluxe, Premier, Enterprise, those 4 different types of bundles, depending on the use case the customer needs. And, just tying it into the conversation here about, how we're all working in technology for a hybrid workforce, right? By leveraging a marketplace environment, as MSPs need ways to buy, simple ways to buy technology, right? And so I think marketplace is a great initiative, and we primarily for our business partners now go to market with marketplace, because it allows partners to automatically provision the service, process automatic orders. It gives them an interface to manage their subscriptions ongoing. So it really simplifies and allows customers to get, quick time to value for the solution. Try, buy, and manage, right? That life cycle for themselves, and of course for their customers, right? And of course, we're all working from home and remotely. As that continues to evolve, and I'll say that probably 50 times during that conversation, because the whole hybrid remote workforce, right, it just continues to evolve, and we're all kind of working through it together. So it's a very relatable topic for all of us.
Yeah, it's great for partners to be able to have that autonomy to buy when they need to buy. And I feel like it is another great marriage between ConnectWise and MaaS360, especially with the for the topic that we're talking about today, and also for the product that you offer to MSPs and to enterprise customers as well. And so the first question that I kind of had for you was, what have you seen in the last, it's scary to think that it's been over a year and a half that we've been kind of working from home and working in this hybrid environment. But what have you seen with the shift that partners have had to deal, and their clients have had to deal with, working in this new model?
Yeah, obviously the pandemic has been a scary time, but to your point, I can't believe it's been a year and a half, and we continue to see where this is going to go. There's been so much transformation, right, from organizations, right, and everyone, any literature you read, right, it's all about digital transformation that's been accelerated as part of this, right? Organizations figuring out how to market, how to work with their customers, how to deliver services to their customers in a different environment. What we've seen from a customer perspective, you think of retail and service industries and, touchless deliveries, communications, right? Kiosks being set up in storefronts, healthcare organizations sending devices home to their patients so that they can check in and monitor stats. There's so many different ways that devices, right, tools are being leveraged to be able to continue to do business, right? And so it's been pretty amazing to see how businesses have transformed during this time. They continue to do business while many parts of the organization have been spread out around the country, et cetera. And of course, all the collaboration tools that are available, right? There's certainly a meeting fatigue from online meetings that we all have to deal with all day.
No, what are you talking about?
Right, back to back to back. Some of us wish more people started traveling again so we could get back to a somewhat normal lifestyle. But the collaboration, certainly, as I mentioned, all the different device types that are now getting connected to corporate resources, right? One of the things we saw initially was customers or businesses were, sending desktops home because they didn't have enough laptops left, right? They were having them go to Staples or Best Buy and pick up devices because they needed to get connected, or they were using personally owned devices, right? And so when you think about MSPs and organizations figuring out how am I going to get all these devices connected to corporate resources so we can be productive and again, continue to deliver our service to the customer, it's been pretty amazing, what we've seen transpire over the past 2 years and how businesses have been able to adopt and really that kind of acceleration of digital transformation.
Yeah, I would say the IT workforce they've really been first responders in their own right with keeping these small to medium-sized businesses up and running when they had to go online and go remote. So bravo to all of our partners in the IT Nation and across the MSP community for that. Can you tell us a little bit about what the impact of device security is while working in a hybrid environment, specifically as it pertains to what MaaS360 does best?
Yeah, and this is, again, when kind of initially hit and you had all those kind of use cases I mentioned where people were just trying to get connected with whatever device, right? They may have not initially been thinking about security, not to say everyone wasn't, but it was more about, okay, how do we make this work? How do we get our users productive? How are we collaborating? So you had all these different devices, whether again they were laptops, desktops, smartphones, tablets, trying to get connected to corporate resources. And of course, MSPs, customer IT had to try to manage that, right? And so device security, and the flip side of that is you've got all these devices getting connected. You don't know where they stand from a security posture standpoint. So, and just to touch on some of those use cases, right? You've got device security. Is it on the latest version of the OS, right? Because we know that there's vulnerabilities in older versions, and you don't know those devices that may be personally owned devices, right? Those devices could be jailbroken or rooted. Should they allow to get connected to corporate resources if they know they could potentially introduce malware? You have applications that could be on a personally owned device that also could have data leakage concerns, or introduce malware or other things that you don't want your employees copying data from a corporate application to one of those other applications and sending it across, right? You've got the network that these users are now getting connected to. A lot of users were used to just being in the corporate office and not having to worry about security, right? Is their Wi-Fi network secure that they're getting connected to, right? Are they using a VPN? Do they know how to use a VPN? Is their VPN profile configured? So there's all those kind of management set up to get a user securely connected on one of those devices back to corporate resources. And then as we've all seen, right, phishing, which was already a pretty prominent security risk, exploded during this because you had all these users at home that may have never had to worry about that are now getting, there's a stat, and it's probably a year old now, that there's a new phishing attack that comes out every 30 seconds, right? Trying to get someone to click on a link so they can get corporate credentials, get their credentials, get them to enter banking credentials, right? Something so that the bad guys can try to get something they want that they can use to sell or do what they want with that. So security is really important, right, as part of this conversation. And I kind of mentioned initially organizations just trying to get people enabled, but security has become more and more of the conversation because of these different attacks and concerns and use cases that have come up as part of a hybrid remote work environment.
It's interesting because when I think about security practices and guidelines, I know through ConnectWise, we have teams, right, that are developing those best practices to relay on to our partners to keep their clients safe. And you've got things like the NIST framework and other type of guidelines that our partners should be utilizing when they're working with their clients. Is there anything that MaaS360 or IBM utilizes to kind of lay out what those guidelines should look like from a bring your own device or from a personal device standpoint?
Yeah, and MaaS360 helps, and certainly IBM, helps in a lot of different ways. And I'm not going to talk into the broader IBM security portfolio. I think the one thing I'll just touch on related to that from a MaaS360 standpoint is we're very much an open integrated platform. So we work with not only a lot of the other security products within IBM, but a lot of the other security offerings out there, right? I think, as organizations, and a popular buzzword out there right now, and what's been around for a little while, is the zero trust framework. Right. And that really requires a lot of integrated security solutions working together to provide a, don't trust anyone, verify everything type model for getting connected to resources. So how MaaS360 helps is, again, we're a platform that helps organizations get those devices connected. Right. So we work with, Apple Business Manager and Google's enrollment program and Samsung Knox and, Windows out of the box experience, so that when a new user is getting a device, right, it doesn't need to flow to the MSP. They can actually configure that up front, have it shipped directly to the end user, and then they're automatically enrolled, their policies are configured, their applications are downloaded, and they begin working, right? So removing the kind of enrollment challenges that can come with a remote workforce. Then we help the MSP by allowing them to configure different policies on those devices, depending if it is a BYOD policy where they're just managing specifically the container on the device and not the whole device. Because of course you want to wipe away the corporate stuff. You don't want to wipe away, the kids or grandma's, 90th birthday party pictures that may be on that device as well. And then how are you getting
grandma? Yeah, no, I was just going to say, grandma would never forgive you if you did that. So that's great that MaaS360 protects that data.
Yeah, absolutely. So separating the corporate from the personal is a big part of it, especially with the influx of BYOD devices. The reality is a lot of companies, many companies actually did have a BYOD policy. This forced pretty much everyone else to have some type of BYOD policy with a shift to remote work, just because, there was a lack of devices for everyone, right? That organizations didn't have all those, extra laptops, PCs stored up, right? So they needed to allow different devices to get connected. So we help, again, those administrators manage the devices, set up security policies, help them with single sign-on to, more multi-factor authentication to some of those applications that those end users may need to get connected to when they're outside the environment. And then, from an MSP standpoint, and through Marketplace, right, we allow them to provision a partner account, which allows them to then view and manage all their customers, tenants they get set up and manning once they provision through that. So simplifying the MSP experience and then automating the provisioning of the services and the accounts to kind of simplify that experience for the partners.
I do love that. I love that you can see it at the tenant level and Marketplace, and that mirrors what's in the MaaS360 portal. That's great stuff. All right, so the last question I have for you is, we talked a lot about current state and what's happening now. And I know it's really hard to predict the future, like Confucius or who was it, Nostradamus that predicted the future as well. But if you were to look into your crystal ball and say, in the future, what does the transformation of the hybrid work environment look like in the coming years?
Yeah, I wish I had that crystal ball. There's a lot of technologies that are trying to help support this, right? And I'll use it again. This continues to evolve, right? I use the example of my wife, right? She's in the she's in the medical space, right, and a psychologist, right? So she was always in the office, right? All her appointments, evaluations, always in the office. So they scrambled for a month just trying to figure out how to make this virtual environment work for their clients. And evolving to now, right? So they got that set up. All their customers were, one the funny thing was they saw a great increase in attendance to those evaluations because it was remote, which was a positive. But now they were one of the first people to get back into the office, right? And so what they're working through now is, it's because they still needed that engagement, right? When you're doing an evaluation of someone that they need, have special needs or other that they need to put in an assessment against, right? You need that face-to-face contact. And so what organizations are working through right now is what is that balance, right? How often do they need to be? What are the critical things that need resources in the office, full time versus being able to do some of that work in the office, some of that work remotely. And then, the key piece about that is, and I think this is kind of a point to the MSPs is, when we initially saw customers, trying to figure out what to do was more, it wasn't so much buying new platforms. They were trying to figure out how to use what they had, right, already. So we saw a lot of existing customers say, hey, we use MaaS360. We've got all these new devices, new use cases. We need your help. Right now, we're starting to see customers kind of evaluate, okay, maybe this didn't work, right? Or we need a better solution for managing our workforce because the reality is, as much as we'd all like to see this end, it's going to be a little while longer before we're back to, even what a new normal may look like. So they're evaluating solutions. They're looking for help from MSPs on how am I going to better manage my mobile, my remote workforce, my hybrid workforce going forward. And again, per the previous conversation, we think MaaS360 is a great solution for them to help do that. And leveraging Marketplace, they can certainly, start a free trial if they're not already using the service. And certainly we've got a lot of resources to help them get started should they want to learn more.
That's great. That's great. And for those of you who are interested in learning more about those resources or MaaS360, you can reach out to us at marketplace.connectwise.com. Thank you so much again, Brian, for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you on this episode of Tech Talk.
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. It was great being here. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't know about the rest of our listeners. I definitely learned a lot about mobile device policies and security and best practices for management. And now, last but not least, we're going to move on to Storage Guardian to hear a little bit about their services and products as well. I'm joined today by Omri Farajan, President and CEO of Storage Guardian. Hey, Omri, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Absolutely. It's so great to hear your voice. It's been so long since I've seen you in person around ConnectWise or at any of our conferences. And I have to ask, because I know a little bit about you and about Storage Guardian, but our listeners are probably very keen to hear about your partnership with ConnectWise and how we work together.
Sure. So Storage Guardian is a 20-year-old managed service provider. We have data centers in Canada, the US, and the UK. We have implemented ConnectWise Manage from as an independent software vendor over 7 years ago. And we had a high adoption of managed service providers utilizing our plugins that we've come to a resold position with ConnectWise, and we've also integrated with ConnectWise Manage and Automate, and as well as the Marketplace.
Great. And tell us a little bit about what you have seen in the last year and a half or so, since our partners, our MSPs, have had to switch their clients and themselves, their own businesses, to a hybrid working environment.
So as a business, we've seen an increase of vigilance from a security point of view. The notion that it's not going to happen to my customer from a ransomware attack, or it's not going to happen to me has really gone by way. Everybody's vigilant and they're really concerned about being, the next, the attack case. And so we've seen an increase of ransomware attacks across the board. And I suspect it's because everybody's working remote and there's no centralization of one, firewall, one admin, managing the entire network. And so that's what we've seen. We've seen an increase of utilization year over year by 40% from a backup and disaster recovery as a service.
Wow, 40%? That's a big number.
Yeah, in a 12-month period, something that we were not predicting before the pandemic, but those are the numbers, and and we scaled up as the pandemic raged and has not stopped.
Wow. That's really interesting stuff. What backup and security measures and tools should our partners have in place for maybe reducing some of that risk that you mentioned?
So I think software as a service, having the agility to install software, when you need it, is really key. So we've aligned ourselves with Veeam and utilizing the Veeam rental license model and steering away from any hardware has really helped our partners, to have a global key where they don't need to ask distribution or really anybody permission to install the licensed software, and they can just simply transact either through the marketplace or if they have the rental license key, as a self-service. Also seeing a single pane of window, all the customers, all the tenants through ConnectWise Manage has really given our partners a strategic advantage to see all their quotas of storage, all their alarms and alerts in a centralized location, reduces the amount of resources you need to manage, and really gives full visibility across the network.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like you mentioned, the integration that you've had with ConnectWise Manage, how long has that been in existence for, and what type of enhancements have you rolled out recently?
So we've had over 5 years worth of ConnectWise Manage experience. Last year we implemented multi-factor authentication on the Veeam platform that integrates into both Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authentication with one-time PIN numbers, which gave enhanced security into our portal, which is called Veeam Self-Provisioning Portal, Storage Guardian Veeam Self-Provisioning Portal, which allows a self-service to decrease quotas of storage. And we've also added recently an extra layer called Outsider Protection, which allows our partners to air gap their repositories because bad actors, they do like to go after the primary Veeam repository first, try to go after the backups first, knowing that that's the antidote to ransomware if they've been able to infiltrate the endpoint protection. And so we've added the layer of immutability by sending the data to another geographic location as well.
That's really interesting. I had heard about that bad actors were targeting RMMs, but I guess I didn't hear it from the backup side of things, the backup perspective. So that I think is really valuable information for our listeners to hear.
What they do is they log in with stolen credentials. They reduce the retention policy from 6 years to 6 hours. Within 6 hours, you see a green check mark that everything is going well, and you don't dig deep, you don't look twice until you need to go into a restore. So certainly we've reduced the risk with multi-factor authentication, immutability with a Veeam recycling bin, and then having the outsider protection as isolating the data in another location as well. And so that's what we've done.
Yeah.
The other areas we've grown with is in public cloud as well. And Storage Guardian, because we transformed to being an independent software vendor, where we would be agnostic if somebody was to run this on a public cloud like Azure, AWS, dare I say, any public cloud.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're taking a lot of proactive steps to help our partner and community. What are some other things that maybe you haven't mentioned yet that are helping partners to manage and secure their clients in the workforce in general?
Well, we have a validation drill on the marketplace, which is a DR runbook, which allows partners to take their customers' data, throw them up on a Hyper-V VMware cloud on the Storage Guardian cloud, and run through the processes with their customers. We built out a statement of work which helps customers win business by detailing important information like who are the most important people within within the organization that need the VPN connection, who is the most important person to make the declaration, and then put it into the DR runbook tool that we've developed, and then assign a service board which integrates into ConnectWise Manage. Common bad actors, in ransomware, they know that a ransomware attack is going to sideblind you and want you to pay out the extortion as soon as possible. They know that your brand, is more important than the 20, 30 multi-million-dollar budget that you have. However, but a little bit of proactivity, a little bit of training beforehand, will really allow you to say no to the extortion and yes to the processes you built together with your customers. The DR runbook is really low cost solution and will really make you stand out as as being proactive with your customers. And it's our point. It's our opinion that the CEO, CFO of the business should make the declaration, not necessarily the MSP. So what we've done is we've implemented easy to use technology such as interactive voice or a text to authenticate against the service board and get a hold of all the service providers, including the insurance company. A high growth of insurance, a high growth of we see with our partners is they want the ransomware insured like any other liability, and and we just put that into the DR runbook, all the insurance information for their customers.
Oh, that's really good to know. Yeah, I know that that's a hot topic too right now is insurance when it comes to cybersecurity, and so that's good to know. One of the questions that we've been asking the other participants in this episode is looking at the current state. And Omri, I know that you are boots on the ground helping partners and also running your business as well. So you see what's happening current state, but what can you tell us? What are your thoughts about what is the future state of the hybrid workforce?
I think that it's a reality. I don't think we're ever going to go back to everybody huddling in a central office, and I think the future is bright for managed service providers to align themselves with this workforce. Working from home or hoteling. Part days in the office. That's going to need heightened, managed services, maybe a little bit differently than the traditional break and fix monitoring that we used to. But I think that being agile and open to change, aligning yourselves with ConnectWise as we go through this is really important to Storage Guardian as a business, from a partnership and just general best practices. ConnectWise has really done a great job during the pandemic, implementing security information exchange, as key point indicators. That's an area that, and we're really proud to be affiliated with ConnectWise. We're proud of our marketplace implementation. We're proud of our Invent partnership, and keep up the great work.
Well, we appreciate you, Omri, and we appreciate everything that you do for ConnectWise and our partners that utilize Storage Guardian. So thank you so much for your contribution and joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of our listeners tuning in to our latest and greatest episode of Tech Talk. If you'd like to learn more about ESET, QuickPass software, IBM MaaS360, and Storage Guardian, you can visit their tiles at the ConnectWise Marketplace at marketplace.connectwise.com, or you can email us directly at marketplace@connectwise.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ConnectWise Tech Talk. If you'd like to learn more about the IT Nation, our premier IT community, tune into our show, Stories from the IT Nation, for event coverage and updates, session highlights, and much more. If you're looking for something that will keep you up to date on the latest news and industry trends, our thought leadership show, Inside the Industry, is the one for you. You can check out these shows and more episodes of ConnectWise Tech Talk at the ConnectWise Podcast Network.